Have you ever clocked out exactly on time just to expose a bad policy? When I first met our new help desk manager, whom I'll call Logan, I thought he might actually improve things. He had moved from out of state, carried a long resume full of supervisory experience, and spoke confidently about structure and professionalism. For a brief moment, it felt like the department might run more smoothly. Then he changed the overtime rules. Before Logan arrived, the process was simple. If a support call ran long, you stayed until the job was done. As long as you weren't racking up absurd hours, nobody cared. Even in rare cases when someone went over 5 hours, management approved it with a quick explanation. The CIO understood the nature of tech work. Issues don't magically wrap up at 4:59 p.m., but Logan wanted stricter controls. Every minute of overtime now had to be approved in advance, and he almost never approved anything. That meant dropping calls the exact moment 5 p.m. hit, even if a clinic was open later, even if a system was down, even if a staff member begged us to stay on the line. It was a policy that immediately frustrated both us and the clinics we supported. One afternoon, about an hour before my shift ended, I received a call from one of our largest clinics. They had a known issue caused by an outdated Windows component, and the fix required running several updates across more than 30 computers. Their office manager requested we do it after they closed at 5:30 p.m. to avoid interrupting their workflow. I went to Logan, explained the job, and he gave me written authorization to work late. I started the updates that evening, expecting the usual routine, but the clinic's internet turned into the real challenge. If I opened more than 4 or 5 remote sessions at once, everything slowed to a crawl. What should have been a 2-hour task stretched into 4. Still, I completed every update, documented everything, and submitted my hours. The next morning, Logan called me into his office and immediately launched into how he couldn't approve that much overtime. I reminded him that he had authorized it in writing. I even showed him the message. He waved it off. You should have started a few updates, clocked out, checked on them, then clocked back in when another batch was ready. You didn't need to stay clocked in the whole time. I'll approve 1 hour. I sat there stunned. That's not legal, I said calmly. If I'm working, I have to be clocked in, and you authorize the hours. He didn't budge. 1 hour. That's it. I nodded slowly. All right, from now on, I will clock in at exactly 8 a.m. and out at exactly 5 p.m. He answered with a sharp, good, that's the policy. What he didn't realize was that his own rulebook was about to fold in on him. Every time I received a late day call, I stayed with it until 5 p.m., then apologized and explained that I was required to clock out immediately. When doctors or clinic managers expressed frustration, I encouraged them to send feedback to the CIO and copy Logan. After all, it was his system, and I refused to work unpaid minutes. The emails poured in. Frustrated clinic leaders wrote detailed accounts about calls being dropped, issues going unresolved, and patients being inconvenienced. They were confused why their tech support seemed to shut down the moment the clock struck 5. Not long after, the CIO made an unannounced visit. He pulled me aside and asked what on earth was happening. He had received several escalations, all describing the same pattern. Techs disconnecting mid-issue and referencing a policy implemented by Logan. I laid everything out. How overtime used to work, how the new system forced us to cut off support calls, how Logan refused to approve legally required pay, and how he reduced 4 authorized hours to 1 simply because he felt like it. The CIO stared at me for a moment, left the room, and told someone to get Logan immediately. What followed echoed across the entire department. The CIO questioned him about the policy, the time edits, the clinic complaints, and the overtime incident. Then he had Logan apologize to me directly before calling the whole team together. In front of everyone, Logan apologized again for the confusion and the disruption. The CIO then instructed us to send him any discrepancies between hours worked and hours recorded so he could review the time logs himself. Before dismissing us, the CIO turned to Logan and said, "You should be grateful this ends with a warning. If I were you, I wouldn't make long-term plans in this city just yet." A department-wide email later that day reinstated the original overtime process with immediate effect. Logan resigned shortly afterward. During one of his final conversations with me, he insisted the CIO suddenly decided he didn't like him. I simply wished him the best and got back to work.